I'm back and I'm meatier than ever because I have beef with God. Because apparently the big man upstairs just didn't want me to make this video between life stuff and a number of technical issues that culminated with my computer straight up exploding. I finally returned with a new computer and I am in so much debt, dude, like it's actually so bad. But I didn't get this far by saying anything other than... how far into the video am I? Oh, okay. Frick it, we ball. Today we'll answer the age-old question, do you got any daggers? Well, it just so happens, that's all we've got. See, daggers and bow broke up, you hate to see it, thus splitting Strider into the Thief and Archer vocations, and frankly, Thief took everything in the divorce, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, it's me, everyone's favourite gardener. I need these daggers to trim hedges. What else would I need them for? So without further ado, here's a list of gardening tips. And by gardening tips, I mean thief skills. Are you kidding me? Before we get into the skills themselves, let's go over the basics. Your light attack is a series of grounded slashes, but when you mash the light attack button, you start performing Scarlet Kisses. Your heavy attack results in a pair of stabbing thrusts that can stagger small targets, and when used on a downed enemy, you perform a damn strong finishing move. Your aerial light attack is a stylish spinning slice, while your aerial heavy attack is a downward stab, useful for targeting weak points on larger enemies and dealing big damage to smaller ones. While you don't have a roll or a double jump, the Thief's Vocation action is Swift Step, which serves as your given evasive dodge. This can potentially be fairly effective, but you don't cover too much distance with it, so it's important to be careful when you use it. Other core skills include Controlled Fall, which allows you to immediately recover upon being knocked down by pressing the jump button, and Footpad, which lets you kick off nearby walls for an extra boost. There's also Bump and Lift, which introduces a small chance of stealing items by landing your given light attacks. Personally, I would actually advise against unlocking this, because it sounds like a good way of over-encumbering yourself very quickly as you constantly pile on extra items, plenty of which probably aren't all that useful. Anyway, onto the skills. Let's start things off with a returning classic, Cutting Wind. Much like in the previous game, Cutting Wind serves as a reliable gap closer that doubles as a bit of crowd control, capable of dealing damage to several enemies in a sequence so long as you keep pressing the button as you dart between them. You can do this for as long as you have stamina, just try to stay aware that you aren't at all immune to being harmed or staggered in this state, and getting hit will generally interrupt you entirely. This can actually make it sort of dangerous to use in big groups of enemies, such as wolves who have a decent chance to stagger you at a close range, and in this game, getting staggered once at the wrong time can just end you, so watch out. At first glance, Ignited Blades looks like a personal fire enchantment, and it kinda is, but there's more to it. Upon activating this skill, your blades ignite, but this ignition itself counts as an attack, delivering a tiny blast of flame that can strike nearby enemies, which is followed by 2 quick slashes. At this point, your attacks are empowered with a kick of extra fire damage for about 15 seconds, which isn't bad, but it's not really a replacement for a good old fire enchantment. As the name implies, Shadow Veil is a utility skill that allows you to go sneaky mode, to enter a concealed state that very slowly drains your stamina, allowing you to keep a low profile for a long stretch of time. It's by no means foolproof, but it is quite effective for avoiding enemy attention, especially if there are more tempting targets around. It's also useful for dodging encounters entirely, which can potentially be a godsend. Skull Splitter is the upgraded version of Helm Splitter. That's the move in Devil May Cry when Virgil's beating my ass! Easy mode is now selectable! As per the original game, this skill allows you to leap into the air and go Beyblade mode. And yes, much like before, it deals absolutely shitloads of damage. This is your go-to option for targeting weak points, and due to the nature of being an airborne skill, it can be quite effective when it comes to reaching them. This one's a staple for a reason. It's very difficult to argue against bringing it along. Powder Blast has you set down an explosive charge on the ground that can then be detonated by pressing the corresponding skill button a second time. This allows you to get a little tricky while laying traps for enemies, but it can also be employed while pinning small foes or clinging to big ones, which allows you to do fucking awesome shit like this. Need I say more? Fair choice for damage across a wide area and is especially effective against undead or anything resistant to slashing damage such as rock saurians. Implicate isn't quite as goofy as it once was. You ensnare one or multiple targets and pull them towards you, which generally leaves them open to a heavy finisher. This makes it an excellent choice for yanking harpies right out of the air and compensating for Thief's inherent lack of ranged options. It does seem to be directly influenced by knockdown power, but sadly, it doesn't seem to be effective against larger enemies. I could be wrong on that though. My word is only gospel sometimes. Concussive Leap is kinda crazy. This skill lets you vault into the air in any given direction with a blast that can make nearby enemies flinch. You can also press the skill button with no directional input to vault directly upwards, and you can utilize this after jumping as sort of a double jump. If you've ever played DMC5, this is basically Gerbera, and I love me some Gerbera. This adds a very dynamic kick to your repertoire and gives you some spicy utility in terms of movement. However, bear in mind this thing can actually be quite difficult to control, and you may need to be especially precise in order to use it effectively, but it's very useful when you need an extra boost to reach a particular weak point or to stay on the evasive. At a glance, Smoke Shroud may not seem like the most useful skill. This is wrong. Using it has you throw down a smoke bomb that just so happens to confuse the living shit out of enemies. You can literally stand directly in front of them and they simply will not attack you. They'll stop attacking entirely, which leaves them open to heavy finishers and the entire rest of your party. Nothing but your stamina limit is keeping you from just spamming these until your pawns sweep up whatever given threat is in front of you, and yes, this does include the big fellas too. The skill is bafflingly effective and is only one of the reasons Thief is such a fucking bonkers vocation. Plunder, as the name implies, has you yoink a given item with varying success. You can use this on small and large enemies. When it comes to the latter, it's usually best done once you've knocked them down. You can also use this on NPCs, who can sometimes have some pretty valuable stuff on them, along with your own pawns.
What the fuck? Why were you just holding on to this?
Yes, this is Master Thief from the original game, and no, I still don't use it. Don't get me wrong, the extra items can be nice, but consider this. Where damage? Where damage? Damage please. Hello? Damage? It's me, your biggest fan. If no damage and doesn't make me look cool, why do it? Draw and Quarter is a skill that can only be used when clinging to larger enemies. Plunge your daggers into said enemy before drawing them free and launching yourself from them with a twirling slash. It can deal decent damage to weak points, but I personally wouldn't recommend it because not only is the damage nothing too special, you generally want to stay clinging onto weak points and so on. While it could be handy as a bit of damage while retreating, I don't find such narrow utility to be particularly helpful. Masterful Kill is your given parry, allowing you to simply say no to an incoming physical attack and respond with your own immediate counterattack. Though the window does seem tighter than the previous game, you can still panic spam it for solid results, and whatever the case, it remains highly effective. Of course, this doesn't just apply to small enemies, this works on large ones too. As such, this skill fucks severely to a copious degree. Critical levels of fuck. This skill alone largely makes up for any defensive gaps Thief may possess. Using it in response to incoming physical damage along with Swift Step to dart away from magic will make you considerably harder to kill. At the very least, this skill is stylish as all hell, and let's not mince words, we're all aware that being a fancy motherfucker is king. Blades of the Pyre serves as one of two secret skills for Thief. I've seen people refer to this one as a joke skill, and technically speaking, on its own, this would be correct. It effectively serves as a decent way to end your own existence very quickly. This is basically an amped up version of Ignited Blades, only you set yourself on fire with a hefty blast that deals a good chunk of damage to you. Unless you either dodge it by pressing your Swift Step as soon as possible, either to the side or backwards, moving forward will still get you hit, or you pair it with the other secret skill, Formless Faint. Formless Faint is actually cheating. Once activated, you enter a stage that is just an auto dodge. If an attack comes your way in this state, you safely dash out of harm's way, even if you yourself are in the middle of attacking. As far as I can tell, this applies to literally every attack in the game. If exceptions do exist, they are under very niche circumstances, making you effectively invincible. While Formless Faint is active, your stamina drains very slowly, like very slowly. And the only real downside to this skill is that you will eventually have to deactivate it to regain that stamina. But assuming you don't just inhale stamina curatives, the hardest part about combat becomes avoiding damage for 5 seconds while it recharges. Can you do that? Can Baby do that? Does Baby want extra cheese on that? Well, if you use Blades of the Pyre while this is active, you will automatically dodge the initial blast, meaning you are now in a state where you are more or less unkillable and also dish out shit tons of damage. Pairing these skills is insane and basically serves as a giant middle finger to the game. Congratulations, your fattest dong award is in the mail. I'm not saying that you can just abuse this to become untouchable and thus Thief is actually the best vocation in the game. I'm not saying that. Onto the Augments. Subtlety decreases the chances of enemies targeting you. Naturally, this is only really going to apply when you're fighting in a party rather than on your own. Gratification provides a small heal when you deliver a killing blow, 4% of your max health specifically. Poise reduces the amount of stamina consumed when an enemy grabs you by 20%. Vigor reduces the amount of stamina consumed when you're grabbing enemies by 15%. And finally, Verve provides an additional 30 strength. All in all, Thief is an incredibly effective melee damage dealer, capable of doing some of the highest numbers in the game with relative ease. Though they suffer from a lack of range, they have a number of ways of compensating for this, and some of their standout abilities make them insanely effective. With various ways of weaving in and out of combat, Thief should basically always be able to hit their mark while evading damage. This is a golden choice when you want to add a kick of damage to your party. That's Thief covered. Stay tuned because Archer is up next. I'll try not to take so long on this one, but no promises. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe, drop a like, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can join my Discord for updates and to hang out with the lovely members of the Thieves Guild. I can also be followed on Twitter, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon, or simply donate directly via PayPal. Links can be found in the description below. Have a great day. I'll catch you next time.